Where did Yiddish come from and how do I put it to music? I did it. Oh, that's the speaker. The chronicle of a people can be found where their memories cook, in their food and in their music. And the study of relationship between human thought and its social context, such as the Jews, who are oppressed people, the language has these subtleties embedded in it. Yiddish, is a fusion language with roots in French, Italian, and German, elements of Hebrew, Aramaic, some Persian. It represents the third period in Jewish linguistic history, the first period being Hebrew, the original classical language the Jews spoke in ancient Israel till 586, the beginning of its decline was with the start of the Babylonian exile. At the year 0, Hebrew was no longer spoken. It was replaced by Aramaic, the language spoken, of course, in the era of Christ for about 1,000 years. In around 1000 AD, Jews were experiencing a decline in the centers of learning and rabbinic authority, and the migration to Europe began, through Italy and France north to where new centers of rabbinic culture were arising. Along the Rhine and along the Danube rivers, the settlers, the Ashkenazim, brought along with them their Hebrew, their Aramaic, and fused with Middle German in a very specific way. Men prayed in Hebrew, women prayed, ran their households, and conducted commerce in Yiddish. It was designated the language of the uneducated. Restrictions in Germany on property and trade, expulsions in the 15th century from Spain, the wandering Jew moves eastward. Yiddish picks up Slavic. Life goes from urban to rural. Shtetl life, the fusion of the languages is in that phrase. Der Seide wird nistame lehnen dem Sefer dienstig. German, Slavic, German, Hebrew, Latin, German, Aramaic, German. The Haskalah versus the Hasidism. This was the assimilatory Jewish intellectuals, mostly in Western Europe and Germany, fleeing Jewishness, while a larger percentage of Easterners were following the mystical and the ecstatic in Yiddish. The song Kumaher du Philosoph reflects the dialogue between these two Jews. Now, in contrast, when the Jewish Enlightenment took hold in Eastern Europe, many Jewish intellectuals saw Yiddish as the way to convey their broader views on emancipation. And Yiddish flourished, particularly in Eastern Europe, even as the debate around cultural autonomy versus assimilation and Yiddish versus Hebrew raged on. Here came the first wave of Yiddish-speaking immigrants to America and the founding of the Bund in Europe and Workman's Circle in the US. Prior to the Holocaust, the population of Yiddish speakers was 11 to 13 million. With the Holocaust and the genocide of 6 million Jews, Yiddish had to overcome the loss of almost half its native speakers in Europe and combat the victim language stigma due to its association with the region where that genocide had occurred. In 1964, Jugendtruth was found, Yiddish as a living language. In '76, there was the first Israel conference that said, Yiddish borrows but unites. And Sutzkever invoked the power and influence of Yiddish in his poem, Mein Mama. Poetry in its Yiddish language thus assumes the task of preserving the entire culture that went into its creation. So what about the cultural creativity generated by Yiddish? And how do I put it to music? There is no language like Yiddish that has a word for every emotional and relational expression, you know? That's why this language will not die, not dead or dying. In fact, experiencing a revival as it unleashes creativity in literature, such as Shalom Aleichem, theater, such as the Tomaszewskis, in art, and closest to my heart, in music. Yiddish is a nation of words, but more than a language, it is the emotional matrix in which I was raised, with a generation interested in that Yiddish-speaking world from which they came, in which they spoke their joy, their sorrow, their reverence and humor, their wonder at their relationship to nature, to spirit and each other. And it's through this music we honor the thread and pull it through to the next generation. It's not just my idea. The revival and yearning for Yiddish flourishes around the world, including in Yiddish. So here's some Yiddish words. It's a love song to Yiddish, and you will be surprised at how much Yiddish you know. Alle weite bist der Weg, bist du gekommen mir entgegen und ich will kein Wort nicht vergessen. gegessen.